On March 23rd, 2019, off the stormy coast of Norway, nearly 48,000 tons of steel lost power in the water. A powerful storm slammed the Viking cruise ship as waves rose like walls around it. Inside, 1,300 passengers held tight and hoped for a miracle. The engines had failed. The ship had no thrust, no steering, and nothing to fight the sea. With each wave, it drifted closer to the jagged Norwegian coast. Just a few more minutes, and it would have been torn apart. Anchors were dropped in desperation. The crew scrambled to hold the vessel in place. It wasn't just about stopping the drift. It was a race against physics and time. So, what went wrong? And more importantly, what normally keeps ships, these massive steel structures, from drifting away at sea if anchors can sometimes make things worse? A rubber duck floats. A log floats. A 100,000-ton ship floats. Thanks to buoyancy, the upward force of water. But floating is not the same as staying put. Buoyancy won't stop a ship from sliding wherever the wind, waves, and current push it. So how does it stay put? The answer is balance. More precisely, force equilibrium. Wind forces push against the sides of the ship. Currents tug everything along with them. Tides pull and release, waves roll underneath, lifting and rocking. All these forces try to move the vessel. For a ship to hold its position, the sum of all forces acting on it must equal zero. That's Newton's first law, applied to water. Wind force acts on the superstructure above the waterline. Current force acts on the underwater hull. Wave force is intermittent but powerful, especially in shallow waters. F, this is your counterforce, what resists all the others. F tide, force due to gravitational pull of the Earth which creates tides, and F resist, force due to the ship's hull resistance. So, for this balance to occur, all the pushes and pulls on it must cancel each other out. It's like two kids in a tug of war pulling with exactly the same strength. The rope stays still. Now, picture that rope not as a toy, but as the very thing keeping a ship steady at the dock.
Explaining the mechanics of mooring is one thing, but bringing it to life on screen? With Storyblocks being part of the crew for this video, we had access to unlimited downloads of high-quality media, all for one predictable subscription. As a creator, you get everything in one place. 4K and HD footage, customizable templates, music, sound effects, images, and more with no extra fees. And thanks to Storyblocks' Adobe plugin for Premiere Pro and After Effects, we can access the stock library right from our editing timeline, saving an average of 3.5 hours a week. And because everything is 100% royalty-free, we can focus on the story without worrying about licensing or copyright claims. Do you want to tell stories and create amazing content like this? Well, get 2 extra months free when you sign up for an annual plan using this link to take advantage of this limited time offer. Thank you to Storyblocks for sponsoring this video. Alright, back on the ropes.
Ships use several ropes, called mooring lines, at the port. They're fastened to bollards, these huge metal posts designed to take the pull of thousands of tons, which will hold them in place. Lines are arranged not just for strength, but also geometry. Each line takes a specific angle. Breast lines run almost straight out from the side of the ship to the dock. Their job? Stop the ship from moving sideways, away from or toward the pier. Think of them like the firm sideways tethers holding the ship close to the berth. Spring lines run diagonally from the bow or stern at an angle toward the dock. These prevent the ship from sliding forward or backward along the berth. They're like anti-surge brakes. Headlines and stern lines run forward from the bow and backward from the stern to the dock. They reinforce the spring lines and lock the vessel's ends in place. When all the lines pull just right, they form a tension network. And like the spokes in a wheel, they work together. Tie them too tightly and you overload the cleats, these T-shaped metal fittings bolted into concrete. Tie it too loosely and the ship will wander. These ropes, or mooring lines, aren't your average hardware store variety. They're engineered for strength, flexibility, and endurance. Traditionally, ships used ropes made of natural fibers, manila, hemp, or quoia. But modern vessels rely on synthetic materials like polypropylene, polyester, or high modulus polyethylene. These offer better resistance to saltwater, sunlight, and mechanical stress. Some lines are braided, some are twisted, and the biggest ships often use composite mooring lines, a combination of steel wire at the core with synthetic fiber wrapped around it. This gives them high strength with reduced stretch. But it's not just about strength. Mooring lines are selected based on elasticity, abrasion resistance, and snapback risk. That's because when a line under tension suddenly breaks, it can recoil with deadly force, like a giant rubber band snapping at hundreds of kilometers per hour. But not every ship gets a spot at the dock. Sometimes, after a port call or while waiting to load or discharge, a vessel has to wait somewhere offshore known as anchorage. No bollards, no pier, just open water. In these moments, it's not ropes that hold the ship. At anchorage, the ocean becomes your parking lot. But this lot doesn't have painted lines or flat pavements. It's alive, restless, pushing and pulling with the wind, current, and tide. So how do ships stay put here? They drop anchor, yes, but more precisely, they set anchor. When you picture an anchor, you might imagine a giant chunk of metal holding a ship down. You're not entirely wrong. Back in the 1600s, mariners didn't have modern steel anchors. They used massive stones or wooden frames filled with rocks. These crude anchors relied on sheer weight and a bit of luck. Modern anchors are not designed to hold a ship by weight. Even the biggest anchors are just a few tons compared to the thousands the ship weighs. What matters is the way it grips the seabed. When a ship drops anchor, it's not just throwing a hook into the water. Once lowered, the anchor digs in. Then the real holding power comes from the long length of heavy chain behind it, called the rod. As the ship drifts and pulls, the flukes, those flat pointed arms on the anchor, bite deeper into the mud or sand. But what really matters is scope. That is, the ratio of the chain length to the depth of the water. A longer scope means the chain lies flatter along the seabed, which pulls the anchor horizontally, exactly the direction it holds best. At a typical anchorage, a scope of 5:1 to 7:1 is common. That means in 20 metres of water, you're paying out at least 100 to 140 metres of chain. It's a carefully calculated system, one that uses weight, length, and geometry to tame the chaos of the ocean. The result? The anchor chain forms what's known as a catenary curve, a naturally sagging shape created by the weight of the chain itself. This curve absorbs tension and acts like a mechanical spring. When a wave or gust pushes the vessel, the chain lifts slightly, distributing the force gradually instead of snapping taut. The tension force in the chain can be analysed using statics and dynamics, where T equals tension, W is the weight per unit length of chain, L is the horizontal span, and theta is the angle between the chain and the horizontal at the anchor point. This isn't just a hypothesis. Marine engineers use these principles when calculating the holding forces needed in different seabed types. Because once that anchor hits the bottom, everything needs to work as planned. The seabed, the chain, the angles, the weather. You only get one shot. But what if you can't drop anchor? Imagine you're in an oil field, hundreds of meters deep. The seabed is a patchwork of subsea pipelines and delicate infrastructure. Dropping an anchor here isn't just risky, it's forbidden. Or maybe you're a shuttle tanker, approaching a massive FPSO to load crude oil. There's no port, no pier, just two giants floating in the open sea, inches apart, in constant motion. So how do you stay put? In these oil and gas fields, the most common method is the single point mooring, or SPM. Picture a huge floating buoy, normally called a clam buoy, permanently anchored to the seabed with chains. Tankers approach this structure and connect using a hawser, a heavy-duty rope or chain, and a floating hose that transfers oil or gas. Once connected, the vessel is allowed to weather vane, that is, to freely rotate around the buoy so it can align with the changing wind and current, reducing stress on the mooring line. It's simple in principle, but executing it takes skill and support. That's where the anchor-handling tug supply vessels come in. These workhorses of offshore operations guide the tanker into position, manage the SPM connection, and assist with hoses and lines. In rough weather, they hold the tanker steady, applying just enough thrust to resist drift. Modern AHTS vessels are equipped with dynamic positioning, or DP systems. At the heart of it all is the DP control system, a real-time feedback loop built on control theory. The vessel is equipped with position reference sensors, usually differential GPS or DGPS, gyro compasses, modern reference units, and wind sensors. These inputs feed into the central controller, which calculates external forces acting on the vessel, like wind drag, current flow, and wave impact. Then comes the maths. The DP computer runs a Kalman filter, a predictive algorithm that blends real-time sensor noise with historical data to estimate the vessel's most accurate position and velocity. Once it knows where the vessel is, and should be, it calculates the required counteracting forces. These are translated into commands for the azimuth thrusters, tunnel thrusters, and main propellers, each firing with just the right magnitude and direction to keep the vessel motionless, or gently drifting in place if needed. Mathematically, it's all about force equilibrium in 6 degrees of freedom. Surge, or forward and backwards. Sway, or side to side. Heave, which is up and down. Yaw, which is rotation. Pitch, which is back and forth rocking of a boat. And the side-to-side movement, roll. The DP system solves a set of equations in real time, often using matrix inversion. This is basically the mathematical version of undoing the equations. It's like reversing a recipe to figure out what ingredients made the dish. But sometimes there's no perfect solution. The forces don't align exactly, or the thrusters can't act independently. That's where least squares come in. Instead of looking for a perfect answer, the system finds the best fit solution. One that minimizes the overall error between desired forces and what the ship can actually do. This method helps to distribute thrust among all actuators while minimizing energy use. The system constantly calculates the vessel's exact position, heading, and movement. And when the wind picks up or the current shifts, the thrusters fire automatically, keeping the vessel locked in place with precision down to a meter. Now, back to our shuttle tanker. When a shuttle tanker arrives to load at an offshore buoy or facility, AHTS vessels position the ship, often with tension tow lines running from stern winches to the tanker's hull. By pulling or easing off, they control the tanker's yaw, drift, and heading, sometimes inch by inch. In rough conditions, they stay on standby, nudging the vessel with precision to prevent hose damage or mooring overload. Unlike shuttle tankers, FPSOs don't move. They are the offshore terminals, but they also can't anchor like a regular ship. Instead, FPSOs are held in place by massive spread mooring systems. Dozens of anchors laid in a radial pattern, each connected by a chain to the hull. They pull the vessel from multiple angles to keep it steady. It works well when a vessel needs to stay fixed in one orientation, like a drilling rig holding a precise position over a well. In deep water fields, turret mooring systems allow the FPSOs to rotate while remaining anchored at a central point. Inside the turret, risers from the seabed bring oil and gas to the surface. In February 2011, in the heart of the North Sea, the FPSO Gryphon Alpha suffered a major mooring line failure in the cold, black void. The FPSO broke 4 of her 10 mooring lines in 9-metre seas and high winds, which allowed the vessel to roll up to 12 degrees. The vessel moved partially off station, causing damage to subsea assets. Further investigation revealed excessive fatigue, some surprising rust and stress in areas that hadn't been predicted. Risk to crew and environment soared, so the Gryphon FPSO had to be towed to the shore and dry docked. It triggered a major redesign of mooring safety assessments across the industry. There was no warning, no live monitoring, no predictive systems, just steel, waves, and hope. But what if it had been different? What if the mooring system had sensors embedded in every link? What if engineers on shore could see stress data live as the storm rolled in? What if an AI-powered twin had already warned, "This line is at risk"? That's not science fiction anymore. It's already happening in the next generation of mooring systems. Sensors are embedded into lines, tracking tension, fatigue, and movement in real time. These data streams feed into shore-based control rooms where engineers monitor health status live, anywhere on the planet. Some systems even integrate machine learning trained on decades of operational data. The result? Safer offloading, less downtime, and vessels that think with you, not just for you. Remember at the start, when we asked what went wrong aboard Viking Sky? Its only remaining lifeline were its anchors, and even that wasn't guaranteed. The crew dropped them just in time. The chain held, and physics, for once, gave them a break.
Now, before we dock, don't forget, Storyblocks is offering 2 bonus months when you join through our link, storyblocks.com/casual navigation.
A big thank you to our amazing supporters on Patreon. You truly help keep this ship afloat. We hope to see you again real soon.